Yo, how's it going? I am back from Nats, and I wanted to kind of go over the decks that I took. So we're going to kind of go one at a time over two different videos. I should also have a deck stage this week if anybody's interested. I don't plan on losing that. Still planning on doing a recap of the top decks of the event as well, kind of go over what we've learned about the current format thanks to that. But my competitive season, unless we have a Winter Cup, is officially done. And I put out a poll earlier today on what deck y'all wanted to see most out of the ones that I played this weekend, and this was the best performing of the list. It's also the one y'all wanted to see the most. So this is Mono Lightning Scions. So some history. I was pretty sure my decks were going to be Rydia and something else, and I wasn't sure what that something else was going to be. For a long time, I was thinking six or mono water or a lot of decks that all seemed like pretty solid, but for six, I haven't played that deck as much as a lot of other players have, and I knew there'd be a lot of people that have specialized in the deck since like Opus 4. And I didn't think that that was going to be a deck that I could pilot better than them to win a mirror match, right? So I figure in a deck that everyone else knows better than I do, I'd be better off playing something different and that can beat that deck. So I spent a long time on. Let me actually pull up the list. I spent a long time on Wind Lightning, actually, was the deck that I did for a long time. And this deck was fine, but I kind of found the wind cards didn't actually hold their own. So, like, you have to play a lot of wind cards because your backup engines all rely on the wind half of the deck. But, like, Cloud is great and Lulu's great, but there weren't other forwards I really wanted to play. Like, Null and Y'shtola are fine, but Y'shtola obviously has the name clash, although it's very good special fodder. You'll see I even kept one in the Mono Lightning list. And like Null is good, but like not game breaking or anything. I was like lacking room for summons. You see, I'm only on so many. I don't love Seymour. I know that Ryan Chen in particular is fantastic with this card. I'm not. I don't want to stack my deck with the summon. I want to not give my opponent that information of what is coming. There's a lot of neat things in here. Nordstalin getting Selkie allows you to cascade into an Alphino, which guarantees Alize Alphino. But I would play this deck, and I just kind of kept losing. And I don't, you know, at some point you kind of say, okay, let's go back to basics. And at the time, Mono Lightning was doing very, very well at a lot of events. This was the Mono Lightning kind of like EX Burst Control Scions list. And I'm not a huge fan of that deck because I don't really like. It's this weird hybrid of like a mono lightning aggro shell with like EX burst to punish people trying to out aggro you and like Shinra you to board wipe while you get set up. I don't know. I just feel like a lot of the cards you play are just bad. You're on like 3 copies of 7 CP Odin, 3 copies of EX burst, 5 CP Ramu. And I wanted to play something that could do similar things. It kind of showcased how good the Scions engine was. Alize reviving Alphino basically toolboxing the entire deck. But I felt that you could replace a lot of the bad EX burst cards and do something a little different. So this is how we came to the inclusion of Mono Lightning Scions. And big shoutouts to Sam Prime, who really helped get this deck tuned properly. This was by far my best performing deck of the day. Went 5-2 in Swiss, and this deck was incredible. So the biggest thing here, first of all, is you'll notice that for a Mono Lightning deck, we're not running stuff like Hyo. I have only 1 copy of Estinian. I'm not trying to kill my opponent quickly. I don't need to, right? As you're running Chaos and Arc, you have inevitability in most matchups if these ever stick to the field and resolve. So there's no need to race the damage across. Hyo is a great card. It actually won a couple games of locals for me, but it didn't fit with what the deck was trying to do, and because of that, it was causing issues with the rest of the deck's engines. So the biggest thing, first of all, is you need to recognize the Alize Alphino engine is insane, and a lot of the Mono Lightning lists were on the backup Alphino, so Lose will actually get a backup early. But if you get Alphino and you go Alize Alphino, that gets the best backup out of your deck, for that while putting 2 massive Scions on field. for like your Stola or your Grahas or whatever else, right? So I just was never a fan of using the backup Alfino. Like basically you're getting a textless backup. Like sure it can do 2K, but it's only to an active forward, which just feels so bad. And like giving it the ability to toolbox into Chaos, into Arc, or into Chaos, into Fel Thanos, into getting your Orisha on field, just seemed so much better. Being able to toolbox into an Ishtola special at the right time. All these use cases were just so impactful that I think it's just the better way to play by far. The other thing that was nice about this was the hybrid, the Wind Lightning. There was no good Category 14 backup. Later on, I realized I could have maybe played like Lightning Ninja, or sorry, Water Ninja, or yeah, Wind Ninja, the one that breaks the backup. But Weaver just fixes all of the problems with Graha. Like even playing Weaver for 2 on your first turn and then going Graha, like Graha into Alize into Alfino, is a very viable play. I actually won a game against Leo because I went turn 1 Weaver into a turn 2 Man in Black into a turn 3 Graha, Alize, Ishtola, Wind Ishtola, and just kind of won the game on the spot because I was able to threaten against a deck that was trying to set up backups and monsters. I had this Ramu suspended. Actually, now that I think about it, this is slightly edited. Now, this got down to 1. This one bumped up to 2, which was a great decision, by the way. It was literally the last change that the deck made. But yeah, so you have the ability to kind of do everything. And Graha being a 10k first strike blocker with Ishtola on field makes it very difficult for this deck to actually take damage, which again allows us to get to that Chaos Arc inevitability win con. I played against a lot of mono decks this weekend. I think even, let's see. Yeah, this deck only lost to one other mono deck and actually beat 1, 2, 3 mono decks despite being on Chaos because it was so difficult for my opponents to actually push damage against me thanks to how big Graha Ishtola is as a combination. Ishtola is insane, and I think a lot of people make a mistake by thinking that by running like the lightning one is on color for the deck, so the fire lightning, because like Ishtola special is one of the best specials in the game, but running just 3 copies of her makes it a little bit tricky to pull off. So usually you want to run 4 or 5 copies. I ran the wind one, which ended up being 100% the right call. I didn't even predict this, but Shinryu was kind of the dominating card of the event. Like maybe it was a big breakout card in the same way that Warrior of Light was in early Opus 19. And Ishtola is actually probably the cleanest answer to Shinryu in the format. It's very difficult for this card to be removed profitably. And if it can't be removed, then Shinryu doesn't do his thing. So the Scions were just a relatively compact engine that left a lot of room for non-engine for the Chaos Arc stuff. So Chaos Arc, Man in Black is 9 cards. A lot of people are like, well, you're playing 3 and 3, and I'm like, yeah, no. If I'm going to brick on Chaos, I'm going to brick on Chaos. We have the 2 Cisnes to get the dead Chaoses out of our hand. We have Orisha and Chadley to get the Arcs out of hand if needed. Orisha was the other real breakout star of the deck. I was playing 1 copy of her, and then was told no by Sam, like you need to be playing 2 of this card. She is the best backup in the deck and the most important card to the entire deck. Basically meaning that once Chaos is established, any summon in the deck becomes a 2 CP arc, which is just game warpingly powerful. Same for Chadley. Chadley got bumped from 1 to 2, basically allowing us to get those dead arcs out of our hand, being recursion for Chaos, being recursion for our Man in Blacks, for our Alizes, ends up being just very good. So the backup lineup on this deck is very clean. I wouldn't have changed a card, honestly. Some of the other players on this list ended up with Ramza, but I don't like the some of the deck building constraints forced them to run more summons, fewer forwards, which like wasn't bad, but I like the ratios I'm at, and I don't think this deck ever needed more backups to curve out faster, right? So Orisha and Chadley were the 2 all-stars. Weaver as well, just being able to slap these down for free once you get to 3 backups is great. Kuja was there to handle stuff like Cloud Pod, like Rydia, just a 2 CP backup that's difficult to deal with. It's breakable, allows you to kind of close games out when you need to, gets itself out of the backup line when you want to. And then the rest are a lot of one-ofs that all do very, very powerful effects. So, late addition to the deck, actually, this was the 49th card, was the one copy of Lulu. It didn't come up this weekend, but against 13, getting Ishtola to be an 8K actually really, really matters. Which makes it so much harder for them to get over you with an aggro game plan if you keep Hope off the field. They can't go like Lightning into Vanille and still do 2 points of damage. 6 can't attack, like party attack as cleanly if you have an 8K instead of a 7. Like, it just, the number of times we're being 7K first strike instead of 8K was good enough to justify the slowness that Lulu normally would cause a problem. I don't like the Anthem backups, even in mono decks most of the time. This is a very rare exception where it was actually a card that did a very specific niche, and you could toolbox into it in theory if the game was slow enough and a matchup that mattered. But generally, she just ended up being good in the games I played her, so I kept her in once I playtested her. One copy of the Louiswa to get our Alize or our Alfino. If you don't have them yet, get your Alfino. If not, get your Alize, obviously. Ricard, I called when this card was first revealed that this was one of the best cards, well, one of the best backups in the game. I just didn't have a time to shine. This is Ricard's time to shine. He is ludicrously good in this deck. He's kind of our best backup that finds another backup. Revealing 5 makes it very likely to hit another one of these. And we've got a lot of our recursion backups as well. One copy of Zemus, which ended up just being really good. We have a pretty high backup count to get both effects, and recurring a forward is always nice. Every time I played this guy, it ended up winning me the game. So, very, very good card. Cid of Klangoli was an EX that would recur Man in Blacks or Alizes, which felt really good. And one copy of Reeve. Reeve also allows us to dig. You can go like Reeve, maybe hit a Ricard, the next turn go Ricard, dig a couple more, hopefully find your Orisha and your Reaver. The deck plays very well off of 3 or 4 backups, so generally I would try to race out to that quantity of backups and then play from there. For our summon lineup, we had 3 copies of Ixion. This card was horrible for me all weekend. I cast it twice, both times without killing a single forward. The entire purpose of it was to use Man in Black to stop an opposing Man in Black from attacking. Shoutouts to Ryan Shen. That was one of the wildest games I think I've played. Ended up being favored just given that I wasn't playing a lot of cards that are really bad in a Chaos Arc Mirror. Cards like X-Death and the Shantoto. A lot of cards ended up causing problems. I put enough forward pressure on where he had to Shantoto me, and then that just meant that my Chaoses went really, really hard multiple times over the course of the game. 2 copies of 2CP Ramu. I wasn't sold on this card for a long time until I found out how good it is at stalling games. Man in Black can continuously banish this card and then replay it on your opponent's turn to dull an attacker and also prevent another one from attacking. You just kind of get to prevent your opponent from playing the game. 3CP Ramu does the exact same thing. Dull an opposing forward and then ping one for 7 and then also say one can't attack. If Man in Black is on the field and these are in the break zone, the game just can't really proceed forward for your opponent, which again means they get to a big field. Chaos Arc just kind of wins the game. 1 copy of 5CP Odin. This is just another nice card to have access to suspend with Man in Black. 2CP late game, kind of continuously using this over and over again, ends up being very good. So with that, we go to the one ofs. This is probably like the area of the deck that I wasn't super happy with. Cisne was fantastic. Wouldn't want to win more than 2, but discarding the Chaos or the Arc was really, really good to just continuously kill things. And then we have our power one ofs. Axis to give us a little bit of extra recursion. He's just like a tricky body to remove. You have to kill him with an EX burst, or he'll always get you some value back. Milling 3 is pure advantage. If you hit like an Alfino or an Arc, you just feel way ahead at that point. He wasn't like an all-star in the deck. I definitely probably could be cut, or even bumped to 2 if you wanted to make him like more central to the deck. But I didn't hate having him. Seymour had a couple of like incidental utilities. Kind of a 4CP automatic break effect seemed pretty decent. And in theory, we could use like the Ramu to give him haste and then ping for a point of damage to close out a game without attacking. It didn't come up this weekend, but I don't think the card was bad. One copy of Aranea. This is probably a card that could have been something else, to be honest, but decent EX burst, good against 13 because it's hard for them to get over a big first strike 6 CP forward. I think the only time we hit her into damage was on a board state where she couldn't kill anything, but she wasn't like bad. It was just like it's kind of a little bit sloppy that I've got like a random one of Axis, a one of Seymour, one of Aranea. One copy of Fel Thanos. This is a card you can toolbox into with Alize Alfino against Ice Lightning, and generally it just kind of wins that game by itself. Especially, this is the other reason why Lulu was actually important, was Man in Black and Fel Thanos are 9Ks, and Ashtola pings for 9. So getting them to 10k means that you can actually threaten the Ashtola special even with a Fel Thanos or Man in Black on the field without losing your most important forward. Like, these are the cards that are the engines that win you the game, and you don't want to kill them with your own Pulse of Creation because these are very high investment forwards. So Lulu also helps get them out of the way of that. He wasn't super useful this weekend, but again, just a good card in general. Not going to say he was a bad decision for the deck. And lastly, one copy of Astinian. I figured if there was any wind decks, just kind of having access to Astinian as like a quick way of, 1 mana, do 2 points of damage the next turn seems decent. This card was really bad all weekend. I think this ended up being probably a card that should have been cut. Didn't fit with the deck's game plan at all. Maybe this would have been a better slot for like the Hyo or like the second Axis or something, but he really didn't do a lot for the deck, unfortunately. I think I warped him in one game and he did 2 damage, and then just kind of hung out, kept doing 1 damage. He did like 3 damage in the game. It was the first 3 points of damage that didn't matter. The biggest thing is he's just an extra Scion for Ashtola potentially, but so that was the Mono Lightning Scions. This deck went 5-2. Round 1 it was against Mono Water, which was expected to be a bad matchup for it, but they got off to a slow start, and I didn't draw Chaos Arc at all, which meant that I didn't brick on cards I didn't want to see for the matchup. Round 2 it lost to 6. They just got... My opponent played pretty smart and preserved the lock in hand until they could really pop off on a turn. And they had Strago lock, and then they had a second lock in hand, and Strago hit an Edgar on his death trigger after I Pulse of Creation to wipe the field. And the game was just kind of over on the spot there. It beat Ninjas. Very, very close game. Super, super crazy. But I think that was a 7-6 game. It beat Earth Lightning Chaos Arc. That was Ryan Chen. Fantastic game, actually. Like, really, really interesting dynamics with how that match came together. Mist Dragon is really, really good against this deck because I play out of the break zone so much. And Man in Black, in theory, is infinite copies of Mist Dragon. But also, Chaos Arc in a mirror match, this deck does very well into that. And stuff like X-Death I'm not running, but ends up being very, very bad to have stolen with a Chaos. So it ended up being this very, very interesting matchup that I think this deck is favored in, just given how much more efficient it is at what it does. But it was definitely not a free match at all. It was very scary, actually. It lost a mirror to a Mono Lightning Chaos Arc deck as well. Basically, I chaosed first, and then they chaosed second, and they won off of it. And then it beat a Mono Earth Monsters deck in probably the game of the tourney for me, as far as like super strange game states where this deck has some monster hate, but not like big monster hate. It can only break 2 or lesses with Ramu. And I had to deal with a deck that just I was never getting through. So I literally had to mill as my win condition and just try to survive as long as possible. And it ended up working out. Super, super cool match. Opponent was an incredible opponent, but let's go ahead. Let's Goldfish a hand or two and just kind of show you how I would have played this deck. So this hand has Ricard and Lulu, so this has 2 backups, so I would keep this hand. First turn, ooh, Weaver, that's fantastic. So I would keep the Ixion in hand in case we're against 13, so I'd go Odin for a Weaver and just pass. So right here, my opponent probably is, oh my god, Chaos and Arc on the top deck. I want to get to 3 backups here, so I'm going to go for the Ricard. I'm going to say my opponent isn't on 13, so I can discard the Ixion safely. So right here, I have quite a few interesting ones. I probably take the Weaver here. Give myself a nice curve for the next turn as well. And right here, we can go. If we want to play the Lulu, we can do that, probably discarding the Seymour. Or we can go 2 for Chadley. We can toolbox the Arc into a different card and then go Weaver here. And that gives us our 4 backups. Our Graha's online for next turn. We have Chaos Arc, Lulu. We're just kind of off to the races. You see how smooth the curve is in this deck, getting to its backup plays. So like right here, it's a little hard to Goldfish because like say I go like a 7 CP Chaos here, Chaos Arc. And then the next turn, I draw. There's the man in black for the Arc again. And I've probably won this game at this point, right? Let's go one more hand. Rule of thumb, I keep any hand that has access to 2 backups. These aren't the best backups, but this is probably still worth keeping. Well, I just drew the best backup. So we're going to go with Stola for the Orisha. And, wow. Let's go this for Ricard. We could have gone Chaos Arc if we had to here, but I'll try to curve out a little bit. Let's get the Alize, I guess. I'll keep the Lulu just in case. We can get the Zemus here. And if I wanted to, I could go a little deeper and get like pitch the Zemus. I could get the Ram instead. Go this. So let's do that. Let's pretend that I got the Ramu instead. So now I'm set up to Chaos Arc on this turn as well. Chaos Arc with the Weaver seems great. I can also go for Graha instead. Go now like this. And then go for like an Alfino, get the Man in Black or something. Just a ton of really interesting options. But you see kind of how this deck always curves extremely well. It's very weird that Lightning went from a deck that didn't have any engines to being a very, very smooth curve, thanks to Ricard, thanks to Weaver. All of these cards, like I really don't have any backup searching backups in the deck, but I never have problems getting to 3, 4, 5 cards, or 5 backups on the deck. This would be a mulligan. Chadley Weaver, first turn. So this is like the first awkwardish hand. I probably have to get rid of the Weaver for the Chadley. Discard the Arc just to get some dark CP out of the hand. And go fetch like an Ixion. And let's start the turn. There's the Orisha, which is fantastic. And I get to use the Ixion that I searched earlier for it. I also could have gone Alize Alfino, but let's do one more turn. So right here, we can go Alize for Alfino. Revive the Alfino. Get a backup, probably something like a Ricard. Seems really good here. So that I can dig a little deeper. I can play the Ricard if I wanted to, or I can hold off a turn. Let's hold off because the Y'shtola is really threatening, so... And this deck is okay going slow. So this and the Ramu for Ricard. Reveal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can take a Weaver here and just play it straight to the field. I'm on 4 backups now, plus my Grahas are really good. And we're in business, right? I can play the Man in Black, get the Arc suspended, and then go for this next turn. I can go discard the Y'shtola, play the Lulu, go to 5 backups, which I'll probably do here given the rest of the hand. And then, yeah, so I go here, I can go man in black, suspend the arc for next turn. If I wanted to get one of these chaoses out of hand, I could go Cisne, discard Ixion, discard Chaos, kill something for 11. And then one more turn, just go this, all 5 for Chaos, cast Arc, combat, swing man in black, remove the Arc, cast Arc. You kind of see again just how powerful this deck is once it gets to late game. It does very well against aggro, or into aggro as well. Chaos turns out is just very, very good at forcing like 13 to play very awkwardly. But yeah, hope y'all enjoyed it. I should have in the near future profiles for Rydia, which was my deck B for the tourney, and then also I will have a deck profile on Mono Wind, which was the deck that I almost took to the event instead. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.